What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the latest release from Swedish House Mafia, this being their debut album. If you have never listened to their music, or if you just weren't, tapped into pop or pop EDM in the early 2010s, they are a Swedish trio comprised of three great producers in their own right: Axwell, Sebastian Ingrosso, and Steve Angelo. They've come together once again to bring us their first official album as a group. They formally disbanded back in 2013, and after nearly 10 long years, they've made their long-awaited return to music together. And with this grand return, I know that there was a good amount of hype surrounding the release. Each producer has been releasing their own solo music under their own projects, as well as collaborative projects here and there. But their last release together as a group was entitled Until Now. That was back in maybe about 2012. But that wasn't an album. It was more of like a mixtape or a compilation, if you want to think about it that way. And personally, I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into this album. Just because I guess the electronic music industry has undergone so many changes since the early 2010s, back when they were still releasing stuff as a group. So I really didn't have much of an idea of as to what the music would sound like on this album, or what Swedish House Mafia music would sound like in general in this contemporary soundscape. They've brought us a decent-sized project with this album, a total of 17 tracks, and it's about 1 hour in runtime. As per usual, I will give my highlights track by track, starting off with the very first track entitled Time, featuring Mapei. This track's got a very sleek, four-on-the-floor type production. The instrumental is danceable, it's clean, it's very smooth. The tonality is warm, and it's also simple. We've got synth chords that swell and shrink as the song goes on, and the syncopated bass that we hear here on the track really solidifies the groove. It's very, I like the sound of the bass in particular. The vocals are decent, and they fill the upper shelf of the song very well, the higher frequencies. And lyrically, the song has an emphasis on patience. The refrain, for example, repeats the lines, "Takes time to be real, but days keep on passing me by. Takes time to heal, takes time to know where your heart is at. Takes a man to be real, takes a woman to know that." I really like the sentiment, and a lot of the tracks on this album are very simple, but it's kind of easy to interpret. Moving on to track number 2, entitled Heaven Takes You Home, featuring Connie Constance. We've got some ghostly vocals and a lot more house energy on this track. The instrumental features a hollow synth that's drenched in reverb, crispy programmed drums, and there's some muffled piano chords in there as well. It's a pleasant mix, and I like how Constance's voice fits the music. It fits everything very perfectly. Lyrically, the speaker seems to be speaking on grief. They haven't exactly lost the person that they're speaking to yet. They're talking directly to this person. But it seems that they sense that some form of loss is just on the horizon, right around the corner. The outro verse sums it up best. "Make me small so I can fit in your pockets when you go, because when you're gone, all of the colors turn to gray." Track number 3, entitled Jacob's Note, featuring Jacob Mulrad, is a brief tune, and it seems to be kind of like an interlude. It features a very beautiful piano performance from Jacob that feels a lot like it's tonally hinting at the following track. It's in the same tonality, and we've got a brief sampling of the melody that we're about to hear in the tune. And I consider this to be not only an interlude, but almost like an extended introduction to track number 4, which is entitled The Moth to a Flame, featuring The Weeknd. This song has punchy drums and an airy production style that sonically fits The Weeknd's latest style, if you've listened to Dawn FM, for example. And I think that this entire track could have easily been like a throwaway track that would have been on After Hours, or maybe even Dawn FM. It's nothing mind-blowing, but I am sure that this is going to be the biggest hit to come from this album. Lyrically, it feels like The Weeknd almost phoned in the feature, but it's passable. I think that his performance was quite beautiful, though. His voice, I can't deny, sounds really at home on this production style. It works very well. He sings of being in a love triangle, one where he's kind of like the other guy in the situation. He sings in the chorus, but does he know you call me when he sleeps? But does he know the pictures that you keep? But does he know the reasons that you cry? Or tell me, does he know where your heart lies, where it truly lies? I've had mixed feelings about this song in general, but I think that it's an okay song. I feel like it could have been better, but I don't know. It's okay. It's not bad. Moving on to track number 5, entitled Mafia. This song is a very big shift in tone for the album. It's an atonal and dissonant instrumental piece, featuring buzzing synth drones and punchy drums in there as well. It's a mid-tempo track that'll likely please listeners that are looking for something maybe a bit darker or just different from Swedish House Mafia. I especially enjoy how the track seems to become more illuminated as it runs its course, with the synths growing louder and brighter as we get closer to the end of the song. There's also some cool percussive elements added to the very last drop of the song, which makes the song and the music a lot more interesting, as if it's almost like the air is being punched violently. There's a lot of cool different sounds and samples being chopped up here, and it works well. And I think that this might be one of the more interesting cuts to come from the album as a whole. Moving on to track number 6, entitled Frankenstein, featuring A$AP Rocky. This song features grimy and hazy, stripped down, almost trap type production in a way. Rocky's rapping is serviceable, and I think that his performance is not bad. But I do think that the lyrics are a bit lackluster. But then again, I don't really turn to A$AP Rocky for the most substantial lyrical content, so I guess it works in context. The instrumental itself is pretty cool, and I like the switch during the second half of the song when he starts singing about or rapping about mosh pits, as it kind of brings up the energy of the song, and we have some cool shifts in the drums as well. There's a couple of different changes that we hear in the instrumental. I think this might be a song that'll be forgotten as time goes on, but really only time will tell. Overall, maybe a bit of a forgettable tune. Maybe not. It's up to the listener, really. Moving on to track number 7, entitled Don't Go Mad, featuring Say. We find our way back to house production with this tune. The instrumental features bright synths that outline a riff of sorts. We've got rich layered drums and very wet vocals on here. The lyrical content of the song is minimal, and the drums are the real soul of the tune. They're solid and they're energetic. I like the noisy and buzzy riser that we hear about halfway into the track. It keeps things interesting as it continues to play in the background as the music eventually returns back to the original drop that we hear at the beginning. There's also fun changes with filters to keep the music breathing, keeping it moving forward, and a mix of different risers usher the listener into what is a very wonderful outro on the song. Track number 8 is entitled Paradise Again. I think this is a very beautiful track. It's full of progression and development. It's an instrumental that goes through different changes from one section to the next. And for example, the intro is cold and empty, devoid of any obvious melodic elements, but we have a gradual introduction into some synth keys that do usher in the melody, and the song swells to a peak once the drums make their appearance. It's about 2 minutes in, more or less, into the song. Here, all of the elements fall into place, and the transition into the outro is gradual, at which point the song returns to its cold and empty soundscape. Track number 9, entitled Lifetime, featuring Ty Dolla $ign and 070 Shake. It has an alluring intro with the tremolo strummed chords. It just hooks you in. You want to see what's about to happen next. And I think that the melody on this song is very solid. It's quite catchy. 070 Shake's performance fits the production style like a glove. It works well. And on that note, Ty Dolla $ign's vocals are decent as always. And his performance is nice. The instrumental is airy and spacious with tons of wet vocals, of course, and smooth synth chords. The programmed drums are more in the vein or in the style of synth pop, maybe a little synth wave in there as well. Lyrically, the song seems to be about wanting to freeze a certain moment in time, as the chorus, for example, repeats, "Once in a lifetime, watching the skyline, don't change your mind while you're under the white light." And with that, we transition into track number 10, entitled "Calling On." This is a very smooth trance instrumental featuring a powerful Vogue sample. And while being very simple, I think that this instrumental is beautiful and danceable. Track number 11, entitled "Home." The somber, syncopated piano chords create a hollow tone for the song in general. The drums keep a steady 4-on-the-floor type rhythm. And there's a nice shaker that's added for extra energy in the drums as well. I do like the synths that are sprinkled in at certain points, as they add more syncopation, some groove to the tune. There's also a beautiful vocal sample that repeats throughout the song that sings, "You're perfect, you're cool, you share the best parts of you, hold on, show me what love can do." Sometimes we meet someone that makes us feel like we're home, and that's kind of what this song seems to be about. We transition into track number 12, entitled "It Gets Better." This song amps up the energy, hitting the listener with like blaring horn samples at the intro, and then we're introduced to very thick programmed drums and largely atonal background accompaniment. The vocal samples carry the melody here in the song, repeating the lines, "It gets better, baby, I want you, baby." And the build-up features huge supersaws carrying a simple melody, and at the drop, we're hit with more of those big drums and atonal synths that are full of groove. The second the second drop features more movements in the drums, and the vocal sample here is chopped up like crazy, and it works nicely. I like how it sounds. Track number 13, entitled "Red Light." This is a sleek house tune that makes me feel like I'm in Ibiza and like the club at Ibiza, having the time of my life. And I think that the first half of the song is full of movement, but it's largely atonal. The only hint of any melody on the song here lies in that thick bass synth that we hear at the drop. There's also synths that play syncopated pedal tones and some chopped up samples that are also sprinkled in there as well. The real melody here, though, is introduced when we hear Sting enter his verse. He's featured on the song. And he sings, "You don't have to put on the red light. Those days are over. You don't have to sell your body to the night. You don't have to wear that dress tonight. Those days are over. You don't have to put on the red light." It's an enjoyable sleek cut. It's very vibey. I hate that word, but it is very, very vibey. I can envision this at a club, and folks are probably going to love it. Moving on to track number 14, entitled "Can You Feel It?" This song is non-stop risers, like non-stop. The intro features some funhouse drum patterns and some other percussive elements that feel almost like wood blocks, but I'm not really sure what they are. The first drop is very stripped back, featuring just kicks and a deep bass line. On top of this, we've got the vocal sample repeating "Can You Feel It?" and synths that keep rising with no melodic elements present. The subsequent drops are very similar, with only a change in the synth timbre. The riser sound changes as the song goes on, which is kind of cool, I gotta admit. And there's also some minor adjustments to the drum patterns themselves. I think the most poignant lines to come from this song appear during the bridge, and it repeats, "We are living, we're not pretending, but can you feel it?" I imagine this track would make for a very nice transition in a live set, so I can understand the functionality behind the tune. Moving on to track number 15, entitled 1930. This is a noisy tune that feels a lot like a Gesaffelstein song, maybe. The reason I say that is because it's atonal, featuring some hazy samples that feel hollow, and there's kicks and claps that are super thick on the song. There's no melody, but there's plenty of rhythm. There's also some like spooky, eerie sounding samples that repeat in the background, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly we're hearing. We don't know if it's a voice or maybe something synthesized, but it works really well. This song plays out like an interlude to me, as it sits just under 2 minutes in length. With this, we transition into track number 16, entitled Another Minute. I love the soundscape on this track. It's very synthwave sounding in terms of the synths, the various sounds and the timbres and the spacious feel to it. There's plenty of usage of reverb on here. There's also a ton of swells within the instrumental that do keep the music interesting, which is important because the music has very minimal percussive elements. The only thing that I could hear was a thick 808 bass that seems to act like a kick on the song. 070 Shake makes another vocal appearance on this song, and I think her voice is what provides. I think it works well, but it really provides the only groove that we have on the song. It seems she's singing of not wanting to leave a relationship, but knowing that it's time to let go. There's references to this theme throughout the whole song, but I think it's summed up best in the second verse where she sings, "Preacher said I'm better off. Preacher said I gotta do it on my own. Borrowed you and now I gotta let you go. Wrote the message, but I never pressed send." It's only human to not want to let go, but it's also human to allow yourself to do so. And with that, we transition into the closing track of the album, entitled For You. This instrumental has a major sounding key, which I think makes the song stand out when you compare it to the rest of the album. The programmed drums are upbeat, and they're enveloped by soft and warm chords. Thematically, this song is vague, which is suitable for the listener to interpret in their own way. We get the most lyrical content for a brief moment, about 2/3 of the way through the song. And the music here all pauses for a split second, and we hear the lines, "Hold on longer than what you have time for. This one is for the ones who hold their hands in the sky." It's a very beautiful moment. It's warm, and it's a sentimental closer to the album. Overall, I would say that this was an okay album. I think that for a lot of listeners, or for longtime fans of Swedish House Mafia, it might be underwhelming if you compare it to their previous releases. To me, Swedish House Mafia and its individual members have always sat in the center of the pop EDM lane. This project does feel like a big shift from that expectation. So if you're going into it expecting big hits like Don't You Worry Child or Save the World, just know that we probably won't be hearing EDM like that anytime soon. What's curious to me is that Swedish House Mafia had their biggest hits at the peak of pop EDM back in the early 2010s. So for them to release an album as a group nearly 10 years after that style peaked is a strange choice, I do have to admit. But I do respect the guys for coming back together, as they've brought us a pretty interesting body of work that I've enjoyed. I've listened to it several times at this point, and I'm really interested in seeing how this project ages, because I'm honestly still struggling to form like a real opinion on it. I'm still kind of on the fence about certain songs. The pacing of the album as a whole, some of the songs do feel like they drag on a little bit too long, and some of the songs I wish were a little bit longer. But all in all, I think it's really awesome that Swedish House Mafia have come together to put out an official album. I'm not sure if we're going to get more music from the guys. We may or may not, depending on how this album and its tour go, but only time will tell. But yeah, if you've sat here and listened to me talk about Swedish House Mafia and Paradise again for this long, I do appreciate you doing that. And if you have new music that you've been listening to and you just need to share it with somebody, let me know. If you want to share that with me, I'm more than happy to listen to it. And if you want my feedback on that music, just say so, and I'll try to give you my thoughts on whatever you share with me. And with all that being said, I do appreciate you, and I hope that you have a very wonderful day. Thank you.